This is the fourth section that we're going to do in our preparation for the 10 days of STAR. As we're trying to review all this, let's just remember what proportions are. That's what this is about today. Proportions are two equivalent ratios. Now remember, two equivalent ratios, remember that they look kind of like fractions, but they're not. Here's an example of equivalent ratios. I've got 18 sticks of gum in my pack of gum here, handy dandy gum, and if I were to open it up, we would see 18 pieces inside. As you can tell, it's not been opened, so there's supposed to be gum in there. Okay. Now what this tells us is if I had 5 packs, okay, if I went to the store and I had 5 packs and bought brand new packs of gum, right, more than one, if I had 5, that means I would have 90 sticks total. This looks like fractions. It behaves like fractions, but it's not fractions. All right? That's the main key right here. Remember, they behave that way. But if we're going to check to see if they are equivalent, we can cross multiply like this. And we should get the same answer. 5 times 18 is 90. Over here, 1 times 90 is 90. Okay? So they're equivalent. They're equal to each other. That's the first thing that you need to remember. We cross multiply to see if they are equivalent, and they are. All right? The next thing we want to see is we want to see how do we find something that's missing. If we have a proportion, how do we find a missing value? Ways that we can use proportions. One of the ways is when we have missing values. That means that we have 3 numbers and there is 1 unknown. What we want to use is we want to use our key when we see something like that most of the time. Just be careful. But if you see 3 numbers that are related and 1 unknown we're trying to figure out from that, then it's a good bet that we need to use our key. Here's an example. There are 12 sticks of gum in a pack. Now remember, a pack means 1, right? A pack. A pack means 1 pack. If there are 60 sticks of gum, how many packs were there? So how many packages did we begin with before we took them out of there? All right, so we've got 66. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put things that are related together. We have 12 sticks, okay, in 1 package right here. 1 package. Now, we want to know if there are 60 sticks. Now, we started with 12 sticks up here, so we're going to go right across from it. 60 sticks. There's 1 package here. We don't know how many packs we started with. Okay? We do the math for this problem. Now remember, our sticks are up here, right? And the denominator has the number of packs. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do our steps. We cross multiply this way. So we're going to set up our problem. We put 12 times x is 12x equals 1 times 60. All right. So we get 12x equals 60. That's step 1. Step 2. We're going to divide by the number next to our variable. That means we divide by 12. All right? And so we remember that 12 over 12 equals 1 whole. 60 divided by 12, you remember your multiplication, that means 12 times 5 is 60. So we should have started with 5 packs of gum in this problem. Okay? And that's how we use it to find the missing value. Now let's look at another example and make sure that you write all the steps down for this one. Okay, so we already talked about having 3 numbers and a missing value. Guys, for similar figures, if we know that things are similar, then we know that this is simply a smaller version of this larger one. They're both related. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to find our missing value. Remember, we just did the one with the gum. We can still use the same idea here. We have 3 numbers, and we're looking for an unknown. We set up our key. Okay. And we just drag the numbers down. Drag the numbers down. Remember, they have to be corresponding sides. This smaller side is the same thing as this smaller side. Notice they're both here. This is a longer side at the bottom here. They correspond, it's the longest side of our triangles, so that's why they're both at the bottom here. All right, so let's do our steps. So step 1, we need to have 5x is equal to 11 times 3. All right, and we know that 5x is equal to 11 times 3 is 33. Step 2. Okay, we're going to divide by the number next to the variable. Well, what's the number next to the variable? That would be our 5. So we're going to divide by 5. So that's 5x divided by 5 equals 33 divided by 5. Okay. I hope you can see all of that. Let's see, adjust that just a bit, hopefully. All right, over here we're going to need to do some math because it doesn't go in evenly. So we have 33 divided by 5. Remember to put your decimal point and put a line for each number. 5 goes into 3, 0 times. 5 goes into 30, 6 times. Remember to subtract. We're not finished yet, so we're going to put a 0. We could do, if we had fraction form, then we could say 6 and 3 out of 5, but that's not what we want. We want to finish dividing. We're going to put a 6. All right, let me just show you. Remember, similar figures, I'm going to slide this over. Please excuse the movement. If we slide this over, if we had started with all of this, if we had just wanted to know if these were similar, we would be able to prove that they are similar. Now remember, we're going to have our numbers. This is 6.6. That's 11. Okay. If we already knew our numbers and all we're trying to figure out is if they really are similar, we would cross multiply and see if we got the same answers. We already know from this that 5 times 6.6 equals 33. Right? 11 times 3 is 33. If we got the same values, that would prove that they are similar. This is quite a bit. Make sure that you're pausing. Make sure that you're writing those down. Let's go on to one more topic that involves the last place where we can use proportions to help us out is when we do percent. Percent, if you will remember, means that we have an amount out of 100. Okay? So we try to equalize everything so everything has a denominator of 100. All right, now what does that mean? Let's say that we want something that's, like say 1 out of 2. Remember, 1 is the part and 2 is the whole amount. So if I wanted 1 out of 2, remember, like half, wouldn't that be 50%? That means I want 50 out of 100. But these are equivalent, right? This is half. 50 is half of 100. This is 1 out of 2. That's their half, right? So this is a way that we use proportions, all right, percent. All right, now let's look at an example. When we read problems in percent, a lot of times they're very confusing. So we will need something that's going to help us out to solve these. And sorry, I almost forgot that. Okay, so if we're reading this, what's going to help us is going to be looking at some of the words. Now, this is not 100% guaranteed. What it does is it helps us. It's a way of getting some clues. If I look at the word is and of, okay, that means is usually tells us that something belongs to something else. This is Peter, who is an American. Well, he is one of the people in America, right? It's just a way of having some words that clue us in. Now let's look at an example. It's very hard to understand when we read it a lot of times, but let's see if we can work it out. 15 is 30% of what number? All right, so 15 is, when we say is, that means it belongs to a bigger group. 15 is. So I'm going to put my 15 up here. Is 30%. You see the sign? It's got to have the sign, or it has to have the word right there saying percent for it to go right here. Okay? The only thing we can put here is percent. So that's 30%. I want to know what number. Notice the word of. Okay? 15% is 30% of what number? That means there's a bigger number right here. 15 belongs to a bigger amount. Now let's find out what that number would be. And I don't know what that number is. I'm going to put a big old N. I want to use an N this time, just for grins. All right? So we're going to cross multiply. Let's cross multiply here and here. We're going to say N times 30 is 30 N. 15 times 100. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and solve. Now remember, this is step 1. 30N equals 15 times 100 is 1,500. All right, so then step 2 tells us we're going to divide. We're going to divide by the number next to the variable. So we're going to get 30 and divided by 30. Remember, we want the number next to the variable, we want it to go away. So this is one way of doing that. All right, and 1,500 divided by 30. Okay, and we'll do some math over here. Let me move this over just so we can see it. And remember, you should have paused here so that you could actually write all these numbers down, right? Okay, so as soon as you finish pausing, I'm going to slide this over just so I can do the math over here. And we want 30 goes into 1,500. Remember, put your decimal point, put a number over, a blank over a number, and 30 goes into 1, 0 times, 30 goes into 15, 0 times, 30 goes into 150, 5 times. Okay, subtract 0. But remember, we have 1 0 left. We also have a blank left. 30 goes into 0, 0 times. Guess what? N equals 50. So we have 15 out of 50 is the same thing as 30 out of 100, okay? That kind of makes sense. Just double it. See what happens. Let's see what happens when we double it. If I said this times 2, 15 times 2 is 30. 15 times 2, right? 50 times 2 is 100. It's just a double check. But we see that this is true, okay? So percent's another place that we use it. Remember, we have the 100 down here. This always stays 100. This is our percent. And over here is where we work with either the part and the whole. Some kind of a discount is usually what we talk about here. We will talk about these some more in class, okay? Hope you take a lot of good notes. Bye.